What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Watch Us Thrive podcast. This is your girl, Leanne, and we are way overdue for a solo episode. Yes, your girl is here by herself. I really don't record these unless I'm inspired by something because I just love interviewing and meeting so many incredible people to share their own story. But your girl is inspired this week, and we're going to have a chat. We're going to talk about some really, really important topics when it comes to this podcast. Okay. Y'all know I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I'm an advocate. I'm a speaker. And October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I love this time of year. It's my favorite. I'm a fall baby. Leaves are changing. The weather is getting a little bit colder. And this is really such an important month for me. And it's time to raise awareness around this topic that I hold very near and dear to my heart. I talk about this 24/7. But especially in October, we're going to raise even more awareness around this issue. Now, what inspired this episode? Netflix. There is a new documentary. Is it a documentary? Miniseries? I don't know what you want to call it. That's out. I think it came out in the beginning of September, titled Worst Ex Ever. I'm going to read the synopsis for you. This is not going to be a spoiler episode. Don't worry. I'm not going to give anything away to anyone who has not watched it, but I am going to talk about a lot of messages and meanings that I took away from watching this documentary. This is directly from Netflix's website about the documentary that I'm talking about. Again, it's titled Worst Ex Ever. Intimate partner violence is often insidious. Abusers come in many forms. They can be loving partners and pathological liars, outwardly friendly and terrifying at home, soft-spoken and controlling. Those who experience it never enter into the relationships thinking they'll bring anything but happiness. And it could take months to years for the perpetrators to reveal their true colors. The new true crime series, Worst Ex Ever, documents 4 instances of relationships gone extremely wrong due to violent, deceitful partners. From director Cynthia Childs and Blumhouse Television, the series details the accounts through interviews with survivors, victims' families, and investigators. Now, when it comes to Netflix, I'm a binge type of girl, especially if it's true crime. I'm very much a true crime lover. I will literally watch an entire series in one day or one weekend. When I'm really into something, I want to watch it back to back. I watched this show in one day, even though it was only 4 episodes. They're about an hour long, but it literally took me all day to watch this show because huge trigger warning throughout it, especially if you're a survivor, if you're someone who has a history of being in abusive relationships. The content, it's rated MA, right? Mature audiences. It was a lot. It was heavy. It was very graphic with the situations that they talked about, the images that they showed, the reenactments. It was very triggering for me, honestly, to watch. However, I was very appreciative of coming across a program like this for people to take in. I'm very much someone who advocates for domestic violence victims, survivors, thrivers, whatever season of the journey that you're in. And I know how uncomfortable this conversation is, which is why it's so taboo, which is why it's so hush-hush, which is why people don't like to talk about it, which is why society has the thought process around that's their business. I'm not getting involved. I'm going to turn a blind eye, which in my opinion is very toxic, but that's neither here nor there. I appreciate coming across content like this that is putting the truth out there for the world to see. I talked about this on my Instagram yesterday, that it's very important for people to see the truth of what people are going through and living through on a day-to-day basis. We know the numbers. I say it all the time on this platform. 1 in 3 women, and depending on where you are in the world, either 1 in 4 or 1 in 7 men will be a victim of some sort of domestic violence in their lifetime. So this is so common, yet it's so taboo, hush hush, we're not going to talk about it. So when we come across content like this, I appreciate it being someone who's gone through it, even though, again, it is very triggering, it is very heavy. But I really do appreciate the fact that people have the opportunity to see what is the reality of these types of really dangerous situations. The reality that there's a lot of people who don't make it out alive, unfortunately, when they are in these types of abusive relationships. This is the real deal. And I say all the time, in order for us to really change the narrative and to really start to make a difference, we have to talk about it. We have to make you uncomfortable. We have to put it in people's faces to know this is the reality of what the fuck people are going through. So shout out to Netflix and the director and the production company for creating this. I really hope that they have more seasons and they have more stories to continue advocating and putting this out there for people to hear. Like, these stories are going to help somebody. As gruesome and as uncomfortable as it is, every single story that was shown, there was a turnaround. There was a light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. There was some sort of justice that was able to happen, and that's what I appreciate. So I want to read the synopsis of every single episode, and then we're going to get into the notes that I wrote. This is not a spoiler alert. It's not going to give away what happens through each episode, but there is a breakdown of said episodes. So again, like I said, there's 4. Episode 1 was fucking crazy. Like, they started off with a motherfucking bang. Okay, that shit was insane. Episode 1, one night in a small town of Grants Pass, Oregon, Angie receives a distressing call from her friend Justine. When Angie shows up to Justine's house, she comes across a terrible discovery that leads to a statewide police hunt for Justine's boyfriend of 2 months, a dangerous man named Benjamin Foster. Benjamin was fucking insane, okay? Episode 2, every episode was a little bit worse. Every single one was a little bit worse. And I said that episode 1 started off with a bang. Just imagine once you get to episode 4. Every single one was just like, I was literally, if you guys are watching on YouTube, my mouth is wide open. I was literally like, what the fuck? Episode 2, this one was wild. Simona, a financial advisor and small business owner, lives a busy life in Queens, New York. Despite working long days, she manages to meet a police officer named Jerry Ramratan, and the two hit it off. But after 2 years together, Simona gets a shocking call alleging Jerry isn't who he says he is. When she confronts him, he turns violent, then launches a years-long campaign of torment. Bruh, that shit was crazy. I was just like, you really can't trust people, man. It's crazy. Anyway, episode 3, holy shit. Despite her seemingly shy nature, Rosa Hill quickly bonds with Eric during a group hike in Alameda, California, and the two eventually get married. As their relationship deteriorates amid Rosa's control issues, Rosa and her mother, May Lee, enact a bizarre scheme to gain sole custody of Eric and Rosa's child, putting his family in grave danger. The fact that they showed one episode with the woman being the perpetrator of abuse and the man being a victim, I'm so glad that Netflix did that, because, I mean, we know the statistics, we know the numbers. A lot of the times when it comes to abusive situations and perpetrators of abuse, a lot of the times it's the man as the perpetrator and the woman as the one that's receiving the abuse, that's dealing with the abuse. But the fact that they featured a story that the tables were flipped, I'm telling you, episode 3, I was like, this bitch is crazy. She's insane. And her mother. Y'all gotta check it out. If you haven't watched it, number 4 was terrifying. When Amanda met Kevin Lewis in their town of Everett, Washington, she found his efforts to woo her both bold and charming. Years into their relationship, after Kevin's emotional abuse becomes violent, Amanda asks for a divorce. But when Kevin's continued behavior causes him to lose custody of their 3 children, his rage turns deadly. Let me tell y'all something, bro. It was fucking insane. I really invite y'all again to go check out the episodes. The things that those people went through, my heart was breaking for them because I saw pieces of myself in their stories. When I think back to the relationship that I was in, a lot of you guys know, but if you're hearing this for the first time, I was in an abusive relationship during the pandemic, and my life was almost taken from me by the hands of my ex-boyfriend. This was back in 2021. And it has been a very long journey for me to heal, to continue healing from that situation. It's been a lot. And just hearing other people's stories, especially in that format, with like really vivid graphic details of what they experienced, it was a lot. It was very heavy for me to take in, but I wanted to listen to it because I like taking in that kind of content. I really appreciate anyone who's bringing awareness to domestic violence and abusive relationships. Y'all can see I got notes. Okay? And I want to talk about some of the things that I took away from watching these episodes and listening to their stories. A lot of the things that I want to talk about are red flags. There's a lot of instances, there's a lot of warning signs, there's a lot of things that happen throughout the relationship that eventually leads to the relationship deteriorating and getting violent and even turning deadly, like some of these episodes did. And there were so many red flags that a lot of these stories had intertwined with one another that I want to talk about. So, number one, isolating you from your family, your friends, your social circle is a huge red flag. This is something that is done so many times in these relationships. Even when I think about my own situation, even when I think about other survivors that I have interviewed previously on my podcast, this is such a common thing that so many people go through when they're in abusive relationships. If the person that you're with doesn't want you hanging out around anyone but them, that is a tactic that they are using to control you so that you are so dependent on them that when shit does hit the fan, because it absolutely will, who are you going to turn to? You don't have a support system to lean on. So you feel like you're just stuck in this situation. You're just stuck in this relationship. It's very calculated. It's very like, it doesn't happen all at once. It's not like, well, you're not going to see your fucking friends anymore, on day 2 of you guys meeting. It's like you start not responding back to the messages that you get a little bit more. And then, you miss the family function that you would go to every single year. And then, you cancel plans that you had with your friends because your partner wants you to hang out with them instead. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's very manipulative and it's a slow type of thing that happens. And then you get to the point, months, years into the relationship, you're looking around, it's like, the only fucking person that I have is him or her or them, whatever pronouns you want to use. But it's so terrifying. So I really want people to remember that someone who wants to isolate you is a red flag for you to look out for. Okay? Next point. The justice system is bullshit for victims. If you guys have watched, you understand what I'm talking about. Again, this is not a spoiler podcast episode. I don't want to give anything away, but I was enraged with some of the stories on how the police, how the district attorney's office, how the court system dropped the fucking ball for so many of these poor victims that were dealing with this torment. And it's don't even fucking get me started, because honestly, I'm going to go off on a tangent, but I really want to see a change when it comes to domestic violence and helping victims legally. What frustrates me so much that I hear is that, like, when it comes to the justice system, something has to happen in order for some change to happen. Like, it needs to be too late in order for them to be like, oh, we're sorry. Now let's put this person in prison. Now that this person killed someone, now we're going to start taking it seriously. But leading up to it, there's nothing that they can do. I felt so sorry for so many of these people who went to the people who are supposed to protect and serve, and they fucking dropped the ball. That shit, I'm getting triggered. Next point. It's terrifying how people can pretend so well. Especially in episode 2, If y'all watched it, you understand what I mean by that. But what I took away from all the episodes is that my trust issues, being someone who's gone through this, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent to me. Like, that's the mentality that I have now, especially when it comes to when I put myself back out there. It's just so sad that a lot of us have that mentality of like, I can't trust anyone because I've dealt with someone who pretended to be someone that he wasn't. In the beginning, it was like the greatest, and then he turned into a monster. When I was listening to those people's stories, it was just like, damn, yo, like they share the beginning of the relationship and how they met that person, and it's just like, it's great. It's rainbows and butterflies. I mean, we know in the beginning it's the honeymoon phase, and then slowly the relationships start to change. It's a really sad concept for me, especially being someone who's gone through it, that like, my trust issues, that's something that I'm going to have to work through for the rest of my life because of what I went through. Like, it's really terrifying how well these people can hide behind a facade, hide behind this mask and pretend to be the perfect fucking person when really they're like the devil. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's like, damn, yo, how the fuck are you supposed to trust someone? How are you supposed to trust someone? I'm asking for myself. If anyone has that answer, please let me know. Okay, another red flag that I took away. Repeated patterns of violence is a red flag. Run a background check. Let me tell you something. This is in regards to episode 1. There was a pattern of violence with this person, and I think one of his victims didn't realize that until after no longer being in that relationship. And same thing for me. When I think about my last relationship, I had no idea that this person was a habitual offender, had a rap sheet dating back years and years, had a track record of being violent and going to jail for domestic violence and aggravated assault and all of these things. And what I have learned now, going through what I went through, I'm absolutely going to do my research on the next person that I decide to spend my time with and potentially be in a relationship. Like, I'm going to Google you. I'm absolutely going to Google you. I need to know your first name, your last name, and your last known city and state of where you lived. And I actually want to give a resource to anyone who wants to look up to see the person that you're in a relationship with, or you're dating, or you're starting to talk to, or you're married to, whoever. There is a website that I have used myself that you can look up a person's arrest record if you know their first name, their last name, and their last known state that they lived in. And it's called vinelink.com. I'm going to link it in the show notes so that you guys can check it out. But literally, I used that for my ex-boyfriend after I left that relationship and after he was in jail and all of that. And it literally pulled up his rap sheet, and I saw everything. So I really, really recommend that. I mean, there's multiple websites that you can do that, but this is the one that I use, and this is not sponsored. This is just your girl helping my girls out and my guys, anyone who listens. But vinelink.com, you can absolutely find out if the person that you're dealing with has some sort of criminal record. Okay? Run that background check and run the Googles and look at their social medias. Okay? That's what we're doing. Another point that I took away from this show: your life is worth more than staying with a toxic and abusive person. I understand how difficult it is to leave. My situation was very traumatic. It was a life or death situation, but I had the opportunity to leave, and I took that opportunity. And because I took that opportunity, I'm sitting here today having this conversation with y'all. Okay, so I understand how terrifying it is, especially if you've been married to that person, if y'all got kids. There's so many different situations that people deal with. At the end of the day, what I want you guys to remember is that your life matters. And sometimes it does get to that point where you have to make that decision. Am I going to stay in this relationship and continue with this shit that could potentially end my life? Or am I going to find the strength within myself to finally make a plan and leave? And I think when it comes to making that decision, it's so important to lean on your support system. You do not have to go through this alone. There are so many resources out there. I'm going to leave some in the show notes for you guys. There's help out there, y'all. And I really want you guys to remember this when you are making that decision to leave. It's not easy, but your life is absolutely worth it. And you don't need to continue dealing dealing with this shit that you're living in, this torment, this hell that you're going through day in and day out. You're worth it. Your kids are worth it. Your family is worth it. Like, please, y'all, find a way to safely leave, because it's not worth potentially losing your life by staying. Another point that I took away: women can be abusive too. I appreciate so much that Netflix featured an episode of the man being the victim. There are a lot of abusive women out there, and they get away with it more because society has it in their mind that the man is usually the perpetrator and the woman is the one that's getting beat on, right? But when the tables are turned, it's so much more harder for men to be able to prove their case, to be able to show what's going on, because there is that stigma, right? Especially when it comes to the justice system. Y'all, episode 3, insane. So yes, women can be abusive too, and abuse can happen in same-sex relationships as well. It's not always just the man is beating on someone and the woman is the one who's taking it. Anyone can be abusive. We just know that the majority is a male perpetrator and a female victim. Another red flag that I took away: jealousy. Jealousy is a huge red flag. And I posted a reel about this. I did a little mini series on my Instagram at Watch Us Thrive Podcast, if you want to follow me, of 10 types of people to avoid in a relationship. And I forgot what number it was, but one type of person that you should not be in a relationship with is the overly jealous partner. That shit is a red flag. And I understand that jealousy is a normal emotion. We're all humans. We've all felt jealous. I'm not saying that you can't be jealous, but when you take it to the next level, when you're doing way too much, that's when it becomes abusive. That's when it becomes dangerous, because like I said before, when it comes to the isolation, they go hand in hand. Your person that you're dealing with doesn't want you to talk to people of the opposite sex, wants you to delete contacts in your phone of friendships that you've had with people of the opposite sex for decades. They want to control you. They want to control what you're wearing, and, oh, you can't wear that short skirt, or you can't wear that dress, or you can't go hang out with the girls because you're probably going to go out and cheat on me, and manipulate and gaslight and fucking guilt trip and all this shit that comes with that. But I'm telling you, y'all, having that in a partner, it's not attractive. That shit should be such a fucking turn off for you. It should give you an immediate ick. It should immediately disgust you. Like, are you really that fucking insecure that you're going to project your bullshit onto me? Immediately, no, you can get the fuck out of here. I'm not dealing with that shit. I'm not dealing with that. You need to grow the fuck up. Go work on your own issues. Don't put that shit on me. You're not about to tell me what I can do, who I can hang out with, what I can wear, not wearing makeup. But, boy, bye. Got me fucked up. That's a red flag. Immediately no. Another takeaway that I got: there are people out there who are just straight up fucking evil. And I don't want to paint this like a gloom and doom. You gotta be paranoid, or you gotta be like, everyone's bad out there. I mean, we know there's shitty people out in the world, but there's also great people like myself who exist in the world, right? But honestly, it's terrifying to see that there's really people out there who really just don't give a fuck. They just don't care. They have nothing to live for. And it doesn't matter who the fuck they hurt in the process. There's a lot of crazy people out there, right? So be safe. Listen to your intuition, use your discernment, create and set those boundaries. Another takeaway that I got from this show: this is a statistic that is talked about a lot when it comes to advocating for domestic violence. The most dangerous time in a DV relationship is when the victim decides to leave. And this is especially in episode 4. That shit was crazy. But we know that when it comes to wanting to leave, like I said before, like, you really want to lean on your support system. You really want to lean on those resources that are out there, because leaving is the person who's being the abuser. They are losing control over you. And if they're insane and the type of person who has been extremely violent towards you before and who's done some really fucked up things to you, when you decide to get that strength within yourself to leave, a lot of the times it can become deadly. And it can become that, unfortunately, you lose your life because that person is not going to be able to control you anymore. So they're going to do whatever they can by any means necessary to make sure that you don't fucking leave. And again, I don't want to paint this picture of like, it's terrifying. Oh my God, I might die if I leave a relationship, so let me just stay. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I need y'all to know the real deal when it comes to being in these types of relationships. Again, that's why I said, lean on your support system, lean on those resources, create a safety plan, do things in a way that will help you be able to finally leave. And another thing that I want to say is that if you do have the opportunity to leave, leave quietly. If you're able to do it when that person is not at home and they're at work, you pack up all your shit and you get the fuck out. You leave in the middle of the night. You do something so that you are literally like a ghost who just fucking disappeared. And then you have the opportunity to start your life over. And I get it, y'all. There's a lot of different circumstances. If you got kids, if you're married, if you have businesses together, you know, I understand that. Right. But I think it's really important, if you have the opportunity to leave, do so quietly and make sure that you have at least one person in your life who knows the plan and that can support you when you do decide to get to that point to leave. Another red flag that I took away from this: a man or a woman, but I'm going to say man because I'm a heterosexual woman who dates men. A man who calls you names during an argument or tries to put you down is a red flag. There are so many different forms of abuse that a lot of people deal with. And one of them that I dealt with, especially in my last relationship, was verbal abuse. My ex did not decide to start putting his hands on me on day one after we met. You know, it was a very slow build up to him getting to that point of being physically violent with me. But it started off with the emotional abuse, the mental abuse, and the verbal abuse. And I actually put up a reel of a man who created this video. He's a motivational speaker, and he put up a video saying that a man who calls you a bitch will kill you. And I know that sounds very dramatic, like, girl, what? What are you talking about? A man calls you a bitch, he's going to kill you. But honestly, when you think about it, and when I think about my own situation, a man who will disrespect you with his mouth has no problem disrespecting you with his fist. Like, a man who calls you a bitch, he wants to fight you. Like, he doesn't see you as his partner anymore. He sees you as this person that is threatening him, putting him in a position to quote unquote defend himself, and he wants to fight you. So I think because the abuse, you can't see it, I don't think people take it as serious, but it is that fucking serious. That's my whole point in even sharing that. A man who disrespects you, a woman who disrespects you, a partner who disrespects you with their mouth, that is a red flag. You should not feel like that is acceptable behavior for you to deal with in a relationship with someone who claims to love you, who claims to want to spend the rest of their life with you, who says that you're the best thing that ever happened to them, but he's going to call you a bitch and a slut and a whore and all of these really ugly names. That's not love. So someone who disrespects you with their mouth, they will eventually disrespect you with their hands. Remember that. Unresolved childhood trauma plays a huge role in how someone behaves in their relationship. I'm just thinking about my last relationship, and he had a lot of shit. He had a lot of issues, and I got that takeaway from episode 4. So if you guys watch that episode, you'll understand why I said that. Somebody who has unresolved. I'm not saying that if you have childhood trauma and you've dealt with it and you're healing from it, that you're going to be a problem in a relationship. I'm not saying that. I'm saying someone who has unresolved, who hasn't chosen to do the work themselves in order to heal and continue to heal from the things that they've gone through in their childhood, right? A lot of the things that we go through during our childhood absolutely will play a role in the person that we become as adults. And it's up to you to make the decision to start working on healing from that, or just continue being a victim of your circumstance, right? So do your inner work on yourself, heal your shit, continue to heal your shit, because I'll never say that anyone's ever healed. You're always healing. But when it comes to the childhood, daddy wounds, mommy wounds, familial wounds that you guys have, that we all have, please be intentional in healing from that, because it's definitely going to show up later on in your life if you choose not to heal from it. The next takeaway that I have, and I want y'all to hear me, especially my women, I want y'all to fucking hear me. And I'm dead ass serious. If you have to question yourself if you should be in this relationship, you already know the answer to that. Let me say that one more time for the people in the back who didn't hear me. If you have to question yourself if you should be in this relationship, or if you made a mistake of marrying this person or having a baby with this person, you already know the answer to it. And part two of the takeaway that I got from this show is this: getting married or having a baby will not fix your toxic relationship. Having a baby with this person is not going to make things better. Buying a dog with this person is not going to make things better. A lavish wedding with 300 guests and you wearing your dream gown because you've been dreaming about putting together your wedding since you were a child is not going to fix your toxic relationship. Just look at Cardi B and Offset. She entered into that relationship knowing this man was a cheater, gave this man 3 kids knowing that he's a cheater. She walked down the aisle knowing this man is a cheater. And now years later, she's divorcing this man because he kept fucking cheating on her. The ring is not going to fix the relationship. The baby is not going to fix the relationship. The fucking dog is not going to fix the relationship. The only person who can fix the relationship is that person. It's not even you. You can't fix them either. They have to get to the point that they see the problem within themselves and then they start to do the work, just like you see the problem in yourself and then you start to do the work. You cannot fix a person. You cannot change a person. You cannot think that because we're going to get married, all of your fucking problems are going to disappear and he's going to be a completely different person. Stop being fucking delusional. Thanks. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Stop staying in a toxic marriage because of the kids. There's a lot of people who have that mentality out there that because we've been together for so long, I want this family dynamic and I don't want my kids to be raised in a broken home. And I grew up in a single parent home and I know how hard it was. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Okay? I know my approach may be a little bit rough around the edges, but I'm a real ass bitch. I say it like it is, right? I don't sugarcoat shit for myself. I'm not going to sugarcoat shit for you. But honestly, staying in a toxic marriage or a toxic relationship because of the kids, you are creating a toxic environment for them that is now going to be passed down. Because imagine growing up in a home, and I know some of y'all have grown up in this type of home, where your parents are just screaming at each other, are cursing each other out. Your parents are beating on each other. All of this toxic bullshit is going on and you're just growing up in that environment. You're just seeing that and then you're thinking, oh, this is normal. This is what love, quote unquote, is supposed to look like. So then you end up repeating the pattern when you get older and then you need to start going to fucking therapy because you have so many of the childhood unresolved trauma that we talked about before because this was normal, quote unquote, for you. Make it fucking make sense, bro. People staying in a toxic environment does more damage to their kids than choosing to separate and grow up in a single parent home. And I'm a single mom. I fucking get it. It's not easy with no help from the other side. My daughter's father completely signed away his rights when she was like 7 years old. He hasn't been in her life since she was about 2 or 3 years old. So it's just been me and my parents, right? So I understand how difficult it is, but staying in a fucking relationship where you're miserable, it's going to bleed onto your kids. So please stop immediately. Another takeaway, emotional abuse is abusive. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I talked about this before. Just because you can't see the marks, those words, that belittlement, that talking down to you, that shit stays with you. That shit stays with you so much more than the physical. The physical bruises that I had, they eventually faded away. You can't see them anymore. But the things that this person said to me, that shit will stay with you probably for the rest of your life. So please don't undermine or underestimate that because this person isn't putting their hands on you, you're not in an abusive relationship, because you absolutely are. Emotional abuse is a form of abuse. Another takeaway that I got, avoiding certain topics of conversations because your partner's quote unquote trigger buttons and walking on eggshells in your relationship is a red flag. When I think about my last relationship before it got physically abusive, I remember there was a point that I was walking on eggshells because I didn't want to set him off with what I said. Now that I think about it, he was a very sensitive person. Very sensitive and very like quick to react if I said the wrong thing or if I questioned him in a way that he took as me doing too much. And then eventually it got physically abusive when I did that. But if you're in a relationship where you feel like you can't even talk to your partner because you're scared of how they're going to react, that's a fucking red flag. Another takeaway, someone who's okay with embarrassing you in public, in front of your family, your friends, just outside is a red flag. Okay? They do not give a fuck about anyone or anything. If they're willing to call you names, to put their hands on you in a public setting, to scream at you, if you guys are like in the supermarket, to cause like a huge scene, sis, that's a red flag. Huge one. If he hits you once, or if that person puts their hands on you once, they're gonna do it again. And it's going to get worse every single time. Don't believe the fake apologies. Leave the relationship. Now, I never got any apologies from my ex-boyfriend whenever he physically abused me. There was never any accountability on him. But I know that there's a lot of relationships, even like one in the show, that he put his hands on that person and then immediately he started like cleaning up the blood, giving her a hug and saying, "I'm sorry," like right after he abused her. And I know this is something that a lot of people have experienced in their own relationships. But what I need y'all to know, if that person abuses you once, they're going to do it again and it's going to get worse. I promise you that. That's something that I dealt with in my own relationship. Every single time it got physically abusive, it was worse every single time until the last incident where he almost killed me. So I really need y'all to get it. If they do it once, they're gonna do it again. Don't believe that, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've never done this before." Yes, they have. And they're gonna do it again. "It was out of my control. I saw red. I didn't know what I was doing." They knew exactly what the fuck they were doing. And they're gonna do it again. So I need you to know that if they disrespect you once, they're going to fucking do it again. If they cheat on you once, they're going to do it again. If they lie to you once, they're going to do it again. If they put their hands on you once, they're going to do it again. Last point, and this is the one that I really want to end the conversation with, and this is actually a reel that I put up couple of days ago. The end of the relationship with someone that you were dealing with who was toxic and abusive is going to show you their true character and who they absolutely are to their core. Okay? In the reel, I said something along the lines of, the monster that you saw at the end of the relationship is the person that they were the entire time. And I really want y'all to understand that, especially if you're in a toxic relationship, an abusive relationship, and that person in the beginning was like the best person in the world, and then a shift happened and it was like a 180 switch, and they're starting to get cold, they're starting to be crueler to you, they're getting really mean, they're physically violent towards you, they're belittling you, they're making you feel like shit about yourself. That's literally the person that they have been the entire time. They just got what they wanted out of you and out of that relationship, and they no longer need to pretend who the fuck they were in the beginning because they just don't care anymore. There's no need for them to prove themselves to you anymore. There's no need for them to pretend to be someone that they're not, because they've already wiggled their way into your life and they're able to do whatever it is that they want to because you're already locked in. And when I think about my last relationship, that's why I created that reel. The person that he was at the end of the relationship. The violent person, the mean person, the one who tried to end my life, that's who he was from the beginning. And I think a lot of us, especially as women, we try to hold on to the person that we met in the beginning. We try to think, if I can just change myself to get that person back, then everything will be rainbows and butterflies again. But what I've learned on my own journey, y'all, that person was never there to begin with. So you're never going to get them back because that wasn't their true self. The person at the end of the relationship is exactly who the fuck they were the entire time. And I want you to remember that when you're on your healing journey and you start, especially if you're in the beginning and you start to like miss them, or you start to reminisce on the good old days in the beginning of relationship when y'all were having fun. Oh my God, that's what I want to get back to. But that person was just putting on a front for you. They were just wearing this mask. They were just pretending. They were just in this role until you let your guard down. You fell in love with them, and then they were able to sink their hook into you. And now you see the person for who they truly are. I really, really hope that y'all got something out of this conversation. There was a lot that I wanted to talk about, so that's why I recorded a whole podcast episode about it. But I definitely encourage y'all to check out the show. Again, it's called Worst Ex Ever. It's on Netflix. I really hope they do a season 2, 3, 4 because it is so powerful when we come together and we share our stories. As scary as they may be, as traumatizing as it is to go through what these people went through, I think it really just hopefully inspires at least one person to make the decision to leave the situation that they're in. And that's why I continue to advocate for y'all. I continue to share my story. I continue to bring on guests to share their own stories of survival, of knowing that just because you went through something really horrible and traumatic and you were able to come out on the other side, there is a beautiful life that you can live after dealing with some of the darkest things that you've ever gone through. I'm a testament to that. The people in that show are testaments to that. And I just really want to leave y'all with the hope that you can heal from the ugly shit that you've gone through, and you can take your power back, and you no longer need to be a victim of the circumstance that you're currently in. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for checking this episode out. If y'all watch the show, please let me know what were your biggest takeaways. It was fucking crazy. It was insane. I can't wait for the next season. Really hope this helps you guys with your own situation. So that being said, this is your girl Leanne, host of the Watch Us Thrive podcast. Please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Watch Us Thrive Podcast, and follow me on Instagram at Watch Us Thrive Podcast. Until next time, keep glowing, growing, and thriving.